I wish that I could have knocked him out at the start, but as we saw, he came to my ears and whispered, "Please be easy on me." He thought I'm Mike Tyson and I will follow his script 40 seconds after I broke the clown's jaw. We are boxers, not content creators. I wish that I could have knocked him out at the start, but as we saw, I didn't want to put him down early. You all know I was handcuffed. I don't want to say anything that I will be regretting in the future, but all I can say now is the first 20 seconds was enough for me to end Jake Paul.
It's like this is the clearest fixed fight you're ever gonna see. Look at this guy holding his hands up and watch. Watch that. He literally shows him his chin, and he goes down. It's so fake. Look at, he's got nothing. It's like a guy who just learned boxing.
The day after I woke up and told my wife, "Why did I do that?" I don't know. I just don't know what the hell goes on. I remember one thing. I had a very hard moment in that part of my life. But I assure you, in that age, I could have put that clown in the first round, but I sold my soul. And I'm
a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. And then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists.
The heavyweight division runs on fear and respect, not just talent.
That guy did great for someone who's been boxing for less than a decade. He has had no real professional opponents other than Tommy Fury that were legitimate world-class boxers.
I don't even remember.
Fighters who really know the game watched that tape and saw something different than casual fans. They weren't looking at drama or entertainment value. They were studying timing, distance control, and intent recognition. And what jumped out was watching someone realize mid-fight that the rules had completely shifted underneath them. That moment of realization carries pure terror because it means everything you counted on was never really there, just smoke and mirrors. Careers can vanish that fast, which explains why Joe Rogan's entire energy changed during commentary. This wasn't about moral judgment, this was recognition. He's witnessed fighters cross lines they can't uncross before, and he could feel a major headline building in real time.
Oh no, I don't remember the fight that much. I kind of blanked out a little. Listen, know what I remember? Coming back from the first round, and then the next day I remember Jake is doing some kind of, I don't know, what was he doing at the ring?
Oh yeah, a little bow at the end, he bowed.
And that's the last thing I remember. But the day after the fight, the day after I woke up and told my wife, "Why did I do that?" I don't know. I just don't know what the hell goes on.
What did you think of Jake's power, man, when you were in there?
I don't remember it, but my body was really sore. Yeah, my body, my chest, my stomach and stuff was.
Don't fool yourself into thinking the business side didn't run worst-case scenarios ahead of time. They map out disasters over morning coffee. What we're seeing now is damage control happening in real time. Calm public faces, while conference rooms go crazy behind closed doors. The longer it takes to get straight answers, the louder the whispers become. Because when everything's legitimate and clean, explanations come instantly. Instead, this feels calculated and massaged and filtered through lawyers. That's never a good sign. So when you notice delays, think negotiation. When you hear careful pauses, think pressure campaigns. And ask yourself who actually wins when nobody can see clearly.
He's also nuts, right? Just the fact that he's willing to fight the two-time heavyweight champion, former Olympic gold medalist, a guy who's gigantic in his prime, built like a Greek god. And you're gonna stay, and he's a one-punch killer.
Anthony Joshua keeps coming back to my mind, not as some hero or villain, but as the catalyst who sped everything up. He didn't manufacture this problem, he just exposed it way ahead of schedule. And early exposure destroys control completely. Control was the real moneymaker here. Control over matchups, storylines, outcomes, and one clean punch ripped all of it away instantly. Control never gives up without a fight, so expect major pushback, expect narrative spinning, expect people to suddenly have very different memories about what they knew and when. Because once control starts slipping, everyone scrambles for something solid to grab onto, even if it's still moving.
You could only take so much. And at a certain, like that one that he got from Joshua, say if you have like a punch card, you have like so many punches that you can get in your life, which I believe you do. I believe there's a certain number. That one was like 10 bunches. That was like, there was a lot of concussions in that one punch. That was real damage.
You're supposed to get back up from shots like that. Joe Rogan, breaking down this exact moment, pointed out what became crystal clear from Joshua's entire approach. Some people will just shrug and say boxing's always dangerous, injuries are part of the game, time to move forward, that's intellectual laziness. Context matters here, and this whole context is drowning in marketing promises about legitimacy that were never actually earned. When marketing runs way ahead of reality, somebody eventually pays the gap. The bill showed up in bone and metal that night, now it's getting passed around the room, hoping someone else will cover it. Look, I don't think Jake Paul is some evil mastermind. I think he's a product being pushed harder and harder until something breaks. Then everyone starts arguing about who's responsible for the warranty.
In pain?
Yeah, but it's not from like talking.
Talk to me about what your jaw feels like, because you got
It's like a baseball in there.
two plates.
Here's what's really unsettling, and you probably haven't considered it yet. There's already a cooling effect rippling outward, fighters reconsidering opportunities, commissions asking sharper questions, insurance companies raising eyebrows everywhere. Easy money suddenly doesn't feel so easy. When guaranteed paydays start looking risky, loyalty disappears fast. That's when all the public praise quietly turns into professional distance. Fans aren't dumb either. They enjoy spectacle, but they recognize authenticity. Joshua brought raw, unfiltered authenticity to that ring. Once audiences get another taste of the real thing, watered-down versions stop moving tickets. That terrifies anyone whose entire business model requires keeping things blurry. It just seems like 4 titanium plates. 4 titanium plates total. How many did you say you have? Just 1? 8. 8 total. I keep wondering what happens if Paul comes back, not physically but mentally, because once you truly understand, you can be completely shattered. The ring feels different, heavier and more confined. Confidence becomes an act you put on, and fake confidence gets fighters seriously hurt. That's documented history, not speculation. History has a brutal way of repeating itself. Lurking behind all this is the legal and regulatory angle nobody wants to discuss because athletic commissions absolutely hate public embarrassment. This was embarrassment on a systemic level. Those titanium screws create ripple effects and unintended consequences everywhere, and I suspect we're only seeing the sanitized version right now. The really messy conversations are happening in private rooms where blame gets negotiated and stories get aligned. Those closed-door meetings determine the actual future, not press conferences. I don't think influencer boxing dies immediately, but the water supply got contaminated. Contaminated sources don't announce themselves loudly. They just make everyone sick gradually until nobody wants to drink anymore. That ending doesn't arrive with dramatic fanfare. It comes through absence. Absence is absolutely terrifying when your entire system depends on constant noise and attention. Ask yourself who goes silent first. What stays with you isn't the punch itself, it's that pause afterward, that collective moment when everyone inhaled and realized something irreversible had just happened. Irreversible moments don't get erased by public relations campaigns. They just sit there getting heavier over time. So yeah, this remains messy and unresolved because that's exactly how it feels right now. Unresolved and evolving. Until real honesty replaces careful choreography, this story keeps developing cracks. Cracks have a way of spreading on their own. Right now it feels like we're all standing on something that hasn't finished breaking yet. I swear something else is about to come to light, something they really don't want anyone connecting. I'm hoping maybe after this whole situation we can get a rematch. He performed well, but I'd like to see it again. Is that something you'd be interested in terms of organizing? This concludes with athletic commissions in panic mode, insurance companies freezing policies, and a business model hemorrhaging credibility in public view. Now let me take you back, because if you looked away, you missed the exact moment reality broke through the script and everything started falling apart simultaneously. I'm talking about the second genuine competition showed up and the whole system had a meltdown. When Joshua treated him like any other opponent in the ring, the entire fantasy collapsed. The silence immediately after that punch was deafening, louder than any crowd noise, like this can't actually be happening. If you think this was just another knockout, you completely missed the catastrophe forming behind the scenes. I keep rewatching it and every replay makes the situation worse, not better. This wasn't about a fighter getting hurt during competition. This was about leverage evaporating in real time on live television. Here's what nobody wants to acknowledge out loud. When situations are clean and legitimate, people communicate quickly and clearly, but right now, all you're hearing is static and hedging and carefully chosen words stumbling over each other. So ask yourself why the truth suddenly can't handle daylight. Who's buying time, who's calling in favors, and what exactly are they terrified will surface next? Here's my unfiltered perspective, and yes, it's uncomfortable. Jake Paul never built a real boxing career. He constructed a controlled environment. Controlled environments function perfectly until one person stops playing along. Joshua didn't rebel or make political statements. He simply behaved like a normal elite level fighter. That's absolutely terrifying to a system that survives on making exceptions the rule. The moment normal competition arrives, the entire experiment implodes. If you're feeling uneasy right now, that's actually good. Discomfort means the illusion is finally cracking and something real underneath is trying to surface. People keep throwing around words like bravery as if it's some kind of protection, but bravery without wisdom becomes liability. Liability is what television networks and insurance companies guard against, not individual fighters, so don't focus on what happened in the ropes. Focus on the contracts and signatures. Someone gave official approval for this, knowing the skill gap, knowing the risk assessment, knowing the range of possible outcomes. Approval equals responsibility, yet responsibility is being avoided so aggressively you can feel the wind from people running away. Every time they pivot the conversation toward toughness instead of judgment, another warning sign goes up. Count them all. Don't look away. The injury matters obviously, but the precedent is the nuclear element here. Once a brand gets tested against elite level violence, you can't unsee the actual ceiling anymore. That ceiling isn't some mystery, it's concrete reality. Someone just collided with it headfirst at full speed. Every influencer fight moving forward exists in Joshua's shadow now. A long, unforgiving shadow that just stole plausible deniability from every promoter who loves saying we don't know what might happen. Yeah, we know now. They're scrambling because video footage doesn't lie, even when people do. What disturbs me most is how predictable this entire aftermath was. Not the punch itself, but the panic that followed. Boxing history is basically a graveyard filled with moments where entertainment pushed boundaries too far and paid the price later. It always follows the same pattern. Laughter to curiosity, to concern to regret. Guess where we are right now? Stuck between concern and regret, while timelines quietly get rewritten. Don't insult my intelligence by calling these people naive. They understand force, damage, and risk assessment perfectly, which means this gamble was completely intentional. So explain to me who was supposed to lose here, because it definitely wasn't supposed to look like this. I'm gonna use actual names now because dancing around it feels dishonest. Anthony Joshua didn't wake up that morning planning to expose anyone's business model, but he did it anyway. Jake Paul didn't wake up planning to become a cautionary tale, but here we are. When I think about Eddie Hearn, Dana White, Joe Rogan, athletic commissions, and promoters, I don't see villains exactly. I see adults who understood exactly how sharp these knives were and kept smiling anyway. That's what really messes with my head. This wasn't ignorance or accident. This was confidence, and confidence got punched directly in the mouth. When Joe Rogan's tone shifted, you could physically feel it through the broadcast. Rogan has witnessed real damage up close for years. He's had conversations with fighters after wars. He recognizes what blank stares and delayed responses actually mean. That's why his reaction carried more weight than 1,000 social media posts. When Rogan gets genuinely quiet, it's not for content or clicks. It's because his brain is running through worst-case scenario footage he's seen before. I swear, the second he changed his tone, thousands of people watching felt that same cold sensation in their stomachs. Jake Paul is a genuinely complicated figure, and pretending otherwise is intellectually lazy. The guy demonstrates real bravery, ambition, and intelligence that people consistently underestimate. But bravery doesn't automatically equal readiness. Ambition doesn't stop physics from working. When he stood across from Joshua that night, He wasn't facing some YouTube character or entertainment villain. He was facing a lifetime of violence refined into pure muscle memory. Anyone who's actually boxed understands that gap isn't motivational or inspirational, it's existential. Anthony Joshua didn't look angry in there, and that's actually the most frightening part. He looked normal, focused, and professional. That's what completely shattered the illusion. If he'd showboated or acted cruel, people could rationalize it as personal animosity, but he didn't do any of that. He simply performed his job at the highest level. When your entire business model collapses under someone just doing their job normally, that tells you the foundation was never solid to begin with. I keep thinking specifically about Eddie Hearn because he understands boxing history better than most people in the business. That means he understands how many careers ended because someone blurred the line between entertainment and reality too much. So when people like him become measured and careful afterward, that's not public relations strategy, that's mathematical calculation. That's someone mentally replaying decades of similar disasters and asking which ghost just woke up again. Athletic commissions don't make loud public statements, but they remember absolutely everything. If you think regulatory bodies forget about nights that embarrass the entire sport, you've never dealt with bureaucracy properly. Embarrassment sticks to everything it touches. Once it sticks, approvals slow down dramatically, questions multiply exponentially, and suddenly the fast lane gets closed permanently. That affects Jake Paul obviously, but also completely legitimate fighters who had nothing to do with this mess. Mike Tyson's name hovering over all of this makes everything heavier and more complex. Tyson represents a living archive of what happens when entertainment consumes fighters completely. When comments about memory loss float by during interviews and nobody investigates them properly, that's not showing respect. That's deliberate avoidance. Avoidance always returns later with compound interest, usually when someone least expects it to surface. Fans naturally want to pick sides in situations like this, but the actual truth is much uglier than that. You can genuinely enjoy spectacle while simultaneously admitting it crossed important lines. I think many fans felt that internal conflict watching Joshua land clean shots. Part of you gets thrilled by authentic boxing skill on display. Part of you thinks, wait, this wasn't supposed to feel this serious and dangerous. Once that contradiction hits your consciousness, you don't forget it easily. Dana White pretending this doesn't affect the UFC side of things is genuinely amusing to me. Crossover spectacle events don't exist in complete isolation from each other. When boxing reminds the entire world what elite-level violence actually looks like, it recalibrates expectations everywhere across combat sports. That means fewer people buying into the fantasy that experience gaps don't really matter much, which completely undercuts influencer-driven hype across multiple organizations. I don't think Jake Paul is finished completely, but I absolutely think he's fundamentally changed now. Confidence after genuine exposure is never psychologically the same. Anyone who's fought seriously knows that once you've been properly hurt, your brain rewrites how the ring feels. It gets smaller, louder, and more claustrophobic. That psychological shift stays invisible on social media, but becomes deadly during real exchanges. Promoters stay loyal until the mathematics change dramatically. The math definitely shifted here. Risk assessments went up sharply, while plausible deniability went down completely. Once those lines cross each other, everyone starts pretending they were always cautious and conservative, which is hilarious to observe in real time. Caution doesn't sell out arenas or generate pay-per-view buys. Confidence does. And confidence just took a serious body shot. I also think about sparring partners and gym people who knew this gap was absolutely real but didn't have microphones or platforms. Every gym has voices that warn about dangers and get completely ignored by decision makers. Those voices are probably feeling sick right now, not vindicated or satisfied. Being right about danger doesn't feel good when someone actually gets hurt badly. The media plays innocent bystander, but thumbnail images tell the real truth. Outrage sells consistently until it starts scaring away advertisers and sponsors. Fear is terrible for business, long term, so watch how coverage shifts from hype to concern to professional distance. That arc is completely predictable, and it's already happening whether people admit it openly or not. Anthony Joshua will move forward because elite-level fighters always do eventually. But this moment sticks to his legacy in a strange way, not as cruelty or malice, but as exposure of reality. He accidentally became the measuring stick that ended a long-running debate permanently. Being the definitive end of a debate carries unexpected weight, whether you asked for that role or not. What bothers me most is how many people keep saying this outcome was inevitable, like that somehow excuses the decision-making. Inevitability doesn't erase responsibility from the equation. A lot of genuinely smart people signed official approval for this, knowing the statistical odds, knowing the worst-case scenarios and betting anyway. That's not fate or destiny, that's conscious choice-making. I followed boxing long enough to know the sport never truly forgets moments like this one. It buries them temporarily for public relations purposes, then drags them back out when someone makes a similar mistake years later. Decades from now, this fight will get referenced quietly in business offices as the reason certain deals fall apart, even if casual fans barely remember the specific details. Jake Paul's brand was built entirely on control, timing, and narrative dominance. Joshua took all of that away in under 60 seconds of actual fighting. Once narrative control disappears completely, everything else feels fundamentally shakier. Now Jake isn't selling unlimited potential anymore. He's selling recovery and comeback stories. Recovery narratives are much harder to market without sounding desperate or defensive. There are text messages happening right now between promoters, managers, and fighters that will never become public knowledge. Those private messages are colder and more honest than anything said in front of cameras. Private conversations don't require spin or public relations filtering. I guarantee some of those messages say we absolutely cannot risk that happening again. Not with him, not like that, not ever. I don't think this completely kills influencer boxing as a concept, but I do think it matures the entire space brutally and immediately. After this, you can't pretend experience gaps are just cosmetic differences anymore. Once that truth gets widely accepted, the matchmaking pool shrinks dramatically. Shrinking pools mean fewer events, fewer headlines, and less overall noise in the space. As both a fan and a human being, this leaves me feeling genuinely uneasy, not excited or entertained. The excitement came from pretending the line between entertainment and real violence wasn't actually real. Now that line is sharp and clearly visible to everyone. Visible boundaries change behavior patterns immediately. When behavior changes significantly, entire industries follow along. Slowly at first, then all at once. This feels like the slow part happening right before everything snaps completely.